A Black Belt reads my favorite comics of all time. Man, this was incredibly difficult to put together. Comic books, graphic novels, manga. I read all of it. Uh, I'm surrounded by it here. I'm surrounded by the figures of these characters that I love so much. Putting just 10 together in a list was basically impossible for me. I actually couldn't do it. I could not do it. So I have 11 books because I could not. I cut and cut and cut. I could not cut a single other book. Let's get into it. You'll see why. All right. 10 books. I couldn't do it. I got 11 books. 10 and 11 are going to be the same author. I could not do it. Kurt Busiek. So I'm going to put at number 10 Conan by Kurt Busiek. I am a huge sword and sorcery fan. I love this stuff. My favorite games are the Dark Souls games. I love a hero with a big sword versus magic. I just love that. Like I love that whole genre. Everything there, just feed it to me. I love it. And this is like the OG, man. Conan does it the best. But this is sort of a modern take on Conan. And it blew me away. I loved it. This is such a page turner. The art is absolutely fantastic. I won't crack it open because it's pretty graphic. This is highly, highly recommended. Conan by Kurt Busiek. Okay, so why couldn't you cut one book? Why could you not just have 10 books? I can usually do that. Cut and cut and cut until I get just 10 books. The reason I couldn't do it is because I really, really wanted to put both of these Kurt Busiek books on the list. Conan, because it's like my love for the sword and sorcery genre. The writing, the art is fantastic. I mean, Conan's kind of like the male fantasy. I love that book. Absolutely love it. Definitely one of my favorite books of all time. But also, I've got Kurt Busiek's Superman. The reason I couldn't cut this, I just couldn't cut it. Because for the longest time, I grew up as a Batman guy. I'm a huge Batman dork. I've got like the whole run of Batman behind me. And I never liked Superman. He was just like the Boy Scout. I didn't like Captain America either when I was younger. I just didn't like these characters that were like the goody two shoes kind of. I was really missing out. I have a friend that's just always recommended Superman books to me. As I got older, I became more aligned with the sort of morals that Superman represents and started to read some of his runs. Well, the one that really stuck out to me is in this book, Secret Identity by Kurt Busiek. It is right there in the middle. Secret Identity. It is a version of Clark Kent. So he is from our world. It's kind of like Superboy, where Superboy is from our world, but his name is Clark Kent, but he finds himself in the comic universe. It's kind of a take on that, but it's like a kid named Clark Kent, where the comics Superman exist in that world, but he is in our world, and what do you know? He grows up and he has the powers of Superman. It really, really worked for me. It's the moment where I started to really fall in love with Superman. I've got a ton of Superman stuff now. I've got a whole shelf dedicated to him. But Kurt Busiek's Superman was what really catapulted me into being a Superman fan. And since then, I've gone on to read hundreds of Superman comics, and I'm a huge fan of him now. So I really credit Kurt Busiek's Secret Identity with the origin of my love for Superman. All right, number 9, Criminal by Ed Brubaker. I mentioned Captain America. Man, I could put Captain America by Ed Brubaker on the list, but I'm going to do Criminal. I really love crime fiction. I love this whole genre. Basically, everything Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips have worked on has worked for me. I loved it. There's 3 of these hardcover volumes of Criminal. and they are all three fantastic, absolutely fantastic. This is like a sort of a serialized comic, but they all kind of connect. There's little pieces that will connect all the stories into this broader world, and it's dark, gritty, violent, sexual. It has got twists and turns and betrayal and just all the things you think of when you think of crime noir. And yeah, I think Brubaker does it best. Next up, you're probably noticing a huge hole in the shelf right here. It is Preacher. Preacher. So I read the first book a couple years ago, and then a year after that, I read the second book. Man, it blew me away. I loved Preacher. I love dark religious stuff. I don't know why that just works for me. It's extremely blasphemous. It's like really goofy at times, but it's also very dark and gritty and violent, and honestly just really well written. Fantastic art. I didn't really dig Steve Dillon's art at first, but eventually it really clicked with me, and I fell in love with this art. I think he's actually a phenomenal artist. And it's funny how that happens sometimes. It's like when you hear a song and you're like, yeah, whatever. And then you hear it a couple times and you're like, wait, I really like this song. That's kind of how Steve Dillon's art was for me. The whole thing was absolutely just brilliant, so creative, so fun. Yeah, it's goofy. It's got like, preteen humor, like fart jokes and stupid stuff like that. But um, other than that, it's absolutely brilliant. I love that Preacher, Jesse, he has this power. It is the voice of God. He can say something and make you do it. You have to obey his command. That's a crazy, overpowered power to have, right? Like, get down. You have to get down. You physically can't resist his voice. Throughout this entire run, he maybe uses the voice like 3 times. Seriously, like 3, 4 times, maybe not even that much. He basically never uses it because he's such a badass in his own right. He doesn't even need to, and he doesn't want to use it because he has a moral reasoning behind all the things he's doing when he's trying to hunt down God. This has the Saint of Killers, which is one of the coolest antagonists of all time. It's got Nazis and angels and demons, and yeah, Preacher is amazing. Highly recommended by Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon. All right, the only manga on my list. I've read a ton of manga. I've been reading it since I was like 10 years old. My favorite of all time is still got to be Berserk. It just is. I've talked about Berserk a lot on the channel. It is, one of the best dark fantasy stories of all time. You've all heard of it. You probably all read it. Berserk. It deserves a spot on my top 10 list. Oh boy. See, here's where it starts getting really difficult. We're down to 6 books left. So something's got to be in the top 5. Man, how am I supposed to pick a top 5 out of all these? This was incredibly difficult for me to do. At number 6, Swamp Thing. I have read all 3 of these absolute Swamp Thing by Alan Moore. Beautiful editions. Absolutely beautiful. It's got this crazy felt feel to it. They blew me away. I had no idea I was going to love it as much as I did. I had heard that Swamp Thing by Alan Moore is a classic, and I read it, maybe a decade ago. It absolutely blew me away. Blew me away, man. I'm from Louisiana, so I felt an affinity for hanging out in the swamps of Louisiana with the Swamp Thing. The introduction of Constantine, uh, absolutely fantastic. Swamp Thing by Alan Moore. This series goes to some absolutely crazy places. The art is fantastic. The paneling is so creative. The story gets so creative. I've gone on to read a lot of Swamp Thing, and yeah, Alan Moore really set the bar high for Swamp Thing, who's one of my favorite comic book characters of all time. Oh man, this was so difficult. Number 5, I'm gonna put Lock and Key. Lock and Key blew me away when I read it. I'm actually surprised it's only number five. For for a while, I thought maybe this is like my favorite comic ever. It's Joe Hill at his absolute best, the most creative, dark fantasy. You kind of seen a theme. I just love that genre. I love dark, fantastical stories, and Lock and Key is one of the absolute best of all time. A house full of these keys, and each key does a different thing. There's a key that makes you big, there's a key that makes you small, there's a key that makes you a ghost. I mean, they literally put a key and lock and unlock a door and go through, and you can become a ghost, or you can change genders. Joe Hill gets so creative with all the keys. It's so fun. There's a key of shadows. There's a key of weapons. There's one that makes you fly. There's so many different creative things that he does with the keys. And as the story goes on, it just gets better and better and better. And it culminates to a beautiful ending. Absolutely loved it. This is, in my opinion, Joe Hill at his very, very best. Okay, so we started with Kurt Busiek. He made the list twice because I just couldn't do it. Well, Alan Moore also makes my list twice. Watchmen. This is actually probably crazy to some people that this isn't number one. This is considered the greatest comic of all time, the greatest graphic novel. A comic book is like a serialized version. It's episodic. Think of a TV show. Whereas a graphic novel is like the all-in-one. It's intended to be read in one sitting, or in one book like this. Think of a movie. So it's like TV shows versus anyway. Watchmen. This might be the one on my list I've read the most. I think I've read Watchmen like 4 times. Every time I've read it, it just blew me away again and again and again and got better and better. And I, you know, take years and years where I don't read it, not really remember why I love it so much, and then I'll read it again and go, what? It's still so good. All these decades and decades later, it's still fantastic. Yeah, Watchmen by Alan Moore. What more can I say? Everybody knows this. You probably all read it. If you haven't, come on, it's one of the best graphic novels of all time. All right, ever since I was a little kid, I have been obsessed with the X-Men. So I'm going to say the Uncanny X-Men. Can I just say the X-Men? Chris, Chris Claremont's run on the X-Men is like decades long. So I'll say Claremont's X-Men. Does that help narrow it down a little bit? That's so not fair. It's cheating. There's literally hundreds of issues that he's done. If I had to actually just pick one physical book from my collection, I'll pick The Uncanny X-Men Volume 3. Specifically because it has God Loves, Man Kills. You guys know I'm weird about religious themes and stuff like that, and I absolutely loved God Loves, Man Kills. I think it's X-Men at their best. This has the Brood. The Brood always freaked me out whenever I was a kid. This has the Magic miniseries and Wolverine #1. This is an absolutely fantastic book. The X-Men have just dominated my imagination ever since I was a kid. I would always just think about the powers I wished I had and played with my action figures. And I love the movies. I love the comics, even when they're dumb and not considered very good. I just still love being with these characters. I love all the different, unique personalities, and even the ones people don't like Cyclops. I mean, I love Cyclops. What can I say? I'm an absolute freak for the X-Men, and Claremont is pretty much the peak of X-Men comics. All right, so there's only two left. The final two wasn't very difficult for me. I think it's pretty obvious. All my videos, you see behind me how big of a Batman fan I am. So Batman definitely deserves a spot on this list. But not number one. I'll put him at number 2. Again, just like the X-Men. Can I just say Batman? Is that enough? Probably not. What has he been around for 100 years or something? So, Batman. If I have to narrow it down to one book in my collection, one physical book, that was hard. I pulled my hair on which one to grab. There was 4 or 5 I could have pulled. I ended up going with Grant Morrison's Batman, but not just Grant Morrison, but Volume 2 specifically. I love this cover. Absolutely love the cover. Yeah, Batman dies. Oh, well, these guys die all the time, right? But this is done in such a fun, unique way. I love the Batman RIP series. You get to see Bruce Wayne traveling through time to try to get back to us. Uh, it really, really blew me away. This is a 5-star book to me. I know a lot of people don't love Grant Morrison's writing. It's very strange and kind of hard to wrap your mind around sometimes, but I've pretty much loved everything I've ever read from Morrison. He also does this thing that I really loved in this specific volume where Batman has died and someone has to take over. Who would be Batman if Bruce Wayne's not around? There's only one answer to that. It's so clearly Dick Grayson, Robin, or Nightwing. I am a huge, huge Nightwing fan, and it just made me so happy when Dick Grayson took over the mantle of Batman. But he's not just a copy of Batman. He's way different. He's not a dark, brooding, beefy, uh, super intelligent. He's different. He's got a sense of humor. He's faster. He's lighter on his feet. He's just like almost like a counter to Batman. And I just love it. I love the idea of Nightwing. And whenever I was a kid, I would just wish that like I would imagine myself as Nightwing. Like I wanted to be Batman's apprentice. Anyway, I absolutely loved Volume 2. This is basically the death of Batman. Don't worry, he comes back. Oh, all right, made it to number one. I'm sure a lot of you have figured out what number one is. So before we get to number one, man, there's some things that didn't make the list, which is crazy. No Spider-Man, no Thor, no, Avengers or Justice League. All these things that I love just didn't quite make the list. I mean, I love Jason Aaron's Thor. I love Ultimate Spider-Man. I love some of these stories. It just didn't quite make my list. But what did make the list needs to be talked about a little bit ahead of time because it's Sandman by Neil Gaiman. This is number one for me. This is the greatest comic book of all time, in my opinion. It's my personal favorite. All that said, Neil Gaiman, obviously, he's been in the news a lot for really weird sexual misconduct stuff. That really sucks. It really, really sucks. He says it's not true. You know, I don't really know. It makes me very sad, but I am pretty good about separating the art from the artist. So I'm not talking about Neil Gaiman right now. I'm talking about his story, The Sandman. I still think it is the greatest comic of all time. I read it initially years and years and years ago, and it blew me away. Then they announced the TV show, and I finally got my wife to watch the TV show with me. She's not really a comic reader. I've tried, trust me, I've tried and tried. She's just not a comic reader. But she will watch the show, so she watched the first season of The Sandman with me and loved it. And it made me so happy because that show was very faithful to the comic. And whenever that happened, I started rereading The Sandman. So I reread Volume 1, and then I reread Volume 2, and I'm currently working on Volume 3 again. But 1 and 2 are the actual main story of The Sandman. Absolutely fantastic. It is so creative, so inventive, so fun, just brilliant. He has such a beautiful way of writing. The dialogue is fantastic. His, voice as the narrator is fantastic. The story is just so creative. It goes to all these fantastical places. Again, dark fantasy, right? It's obviously my thing, dark fantasy. I love the mythology. I love how we get little tiny pieces of the dreaming, the lore behind all this stuff, and then You don't really know what's going on a lot of the time, and you slowly get more and more. And by the end, you have this huge, vast, imaginative landscape, the dreaming. You go to hell, you see Lucifer and demons, and Morpheus is a very flawed character. He's kind of a jerk. You know, he's got all these issues that he's dealing with, and doesn't really relate to humans because he's like a god. You know, but at the same time, he grows and he learns, and he, ends up basically sacrificing himself in a way. I love the ending, the wake. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Some of the art through here is a little bit off-putting, just a little bit, but then you'll get the next push of issues that is like fantastic art. But the story by Neil Gaiman really never dips for me. Every single issue in this huge, there's three of these. Every single issue is brilliant, really is. So anyway, uh, I know Neil Gaiman sucks right now, but Sandman is still my favorite comic of all time. So just like when I did my favorite books of all time, the reason I did that video is because I want to read some of these books that I think are going to be all-time favorites of mine. So I wanted to sort of solidify right now in time what are my favorite books. That's the same thing I'm doing here. Same thing. I have a lot of these comics that I want to read that I feel like maybe all-time favorites of mine that are on my list. I've got like Jonathan Hickman's Avengers, I still haven't read. Uh, From Hell by Alan Moore. Obviously, I'm a huge Alan Moore fan, so I feel like that's going to be great. I've got all these things here, and I'm really excited to get to them. But for now, that was my list. So let me know if anything inspired you to read this here. I would love to talk to you guys in the comments about your favorite comics, your favorite graphic novels, manga. I mean, I only had one manga on the list. Is there anything else that should have been there? Vagabonds. I'm currently reading Vagabond. I haven't read it all, so it's hard for me to put it on the list. Blade of the Immortal. I've got Vinland Saga up there. I've got all these that I'm working through, but I haven't really finished them. So I don't know if I would say they're my favorites of all time, even though those were all great stories. Anyway, thanks for watching, y'all. Appreciate it. See ya.